They say that magic is dead. It's a convenient fiction, is magic. A quaint artifact of a history that never existed. A fairy tale. Unicorns and dragons, magic swords and ancient tomes are all just children's stories. Nobody believes in any of it. You've stumbled through your life with the belief that this is an orderly, rational world, that science can explain everything, and that myths and fairy tales are for children. You've worn blinders, put on you by 100 years of engineered history. Everyone buys into it. And if you don't, you're a crank, a psycho, or a crystal waver. The problem is, that's just the world people buy because it's safe. See, normal people don't want a magical world. They want a safe world, where they don't have to face the perils of demons, dragons, imagination, and dreams. Some people just don't fit the mold of normal. We open our eyes to a world where we make our own rules and choose for ourselves what we believe in. We awaken to the magic that's been hiding in plain sight.
Many elements of the world of darkness are beholden to myth. Much of this is rooted in our own history, from our days as hunter-gatherers to the birth of civilization. For many supernaturals within this grim universe, these foundations are the core of their existence, confined within the boundaries set by ancient gods, who may or may not be real. Mages, on the other hand, experience the mythical almost as if it were a tangible aspect of the cosmos at large. Of course, werewolves, vampires, and even the mortal man can conjure some power that to you or I could be considered magical. For a mage, their understanding of the chaos which is the world of darkness opens their minds to a whole universe of reality bending. These awakened beings transcend the common conceptions of witches and warlocks. To be a mage within this world is to warp the fabric of what we perceive to be real. The world as you know it is subject to change, and it will be changed at the hands of these immensely powerful beings. Whilst anyone has the potential to become a mage by simply awakening to this chaotic realm, their opponents are many and devastating. Some would say that the very opposition to the power these people wield are considered to be the strongest faction within the world of darkness. So tonight, we will unravel the origin of mages, discovering the elusive concepts of the Tellurian, the history behind their awakening, and the societies and factions which consistently fuel the fire of a war waged over the ultimate goal of all: ascension. But first, if you enjoy grim tales from dark universes or want to learn more about the world of darkness, perhaps leave a like or even subscribe, as it helps the channel immensely. Also, a huge thank you to SpeakerD for the intro and his work on bringing an amazing mage actual play, which will be linked below. Also, apologies for the amount of time this upload has taken, but thank you so much for your patience. It truly means a lot. For other creatures, we would perhaps delve into their mythical origins, or recount some heretical tales of angels, demons, or biblical transgressors. But for mages, we must first wrap our minds around the cosmology of the world of darkness. Magic is not a simple, understandable entity. It isn't a spell to be used without care or thought, nor a little trick to impress or intimidate those who nervously keep your company. Bending reality requires an understanding of what brings this world of darkness to life, and thus we must acknowledge how mages view the vast worlds, both physical and spiritual, which intertwine and bind the fabric of this dismal and nightmarish universe. To start, we must understand the Tellurian. The Tellurian is perhaps the most foundational and yet the most complex concept for mages. The world is the Tellurian and encapsulates reality as we know it. This does not extend to just the physical manifestation of the universe, as the Tellurian is, in essence, everything. It is every ethereal realm, every dimension, every possibility which pertains to the vast universe which is the world of darkness. To understand the Tellurian in its entirety is seen to be an impossible task, though this aspect only emboldens mages to discover more about the fabric of this existence which we are all tied to. Linking to this concept is that of the tapestry. The tapestry is a metaphor utilized by mages to further envision the Tellurian to a human mind. Each thread of the tapestry illustrates how reality is tethered together, with the Tellurian acting as its fabric, and the awakened mages as its weavers, threading new possibilities across reality and changing the pattern indefinitely. Quintessence, the raw material which forms the Tellurian, is also the fuel to create patterns within the tapestry. A mage does not always require quintessence to perform spells, though it is essential for weaving patterns on reality. Thus, nodes, great wellsprings of concentrated quintessence, are frequented by mages to replenish their energy. Chantries are often found around these spots, located by the convergence of ley lines, supposed magical barriers which were once set by the demons of the Iron Legion to protect Earth from the wrath of Yahweh. However, with infinite possibilities comes the added danger of certain demise. Whilst mages pull and weave these threads across reality, there comes the temptation to tug and snag on these threads. A mage may only change the tapestry if they are willing to accept a change to their place within it, and thus drastic alterations can cause echoes which result in a similar pullback on the mage. If an awakened pulls too hard, these threads can snap, which often leads to the cataclysmic fall of the sorcerer. On the macro scale, too many alterations to the tapestry without perceiving the flow of the pattern may lead to drastic implications to reality itself. And it is theorized that if the tapestry is frayed and torn by many who seek to alter the course of reality, the Tellurian itself will cease to be, unraveling everything that ever is, was, and will be. You would think, with the existence of mages altering reality at their very fingertips, the world itself would be a remarkable place, where myths and legends thrive amongst endless imagination that magic can provide. This is most certainly not the case. The world of darkness is chaotic, yes, but the realm in which the majority of life reside within is substantial, organizable, and most of all, exploitable. It is a world tarnished by the elite, ravaged by their endeavor to reap every last dollar out of the land, and let the masses deal with the consequences. It is a world where our leaders hide away in skyscraping spires, and the have-nots linger in the squalid underbelly. Those who have not awakened and cannot see the world as it truly is, are referred to as sleepers. The technocracy sees it fit that this organized world of darkness remains tethered to their carefully engineered status quo. The sleepers rise, step outside, and think nothing of the horror of their mundane lives. They do not see the supernatural, or the insurmountable panic it would cause to their collective psyche. Any anomaly perceived by their naive eyes, well, that can be obviously explained away by rational science. Or perhaps an alteration of a sleeper's recollection to keep things quiet. To the sleepers, the mundane world is scary enough. Oppression, greed, and the evil of humanity is enough for them to close their eyes to what might be worse. The stagnation of the world, carefully maintained, makes them feel rather safe. This, in essence, is the perfect environment for the technocracy. For mages, however, this world is far more than just the reality we can see. In fact, the universe of the world of darkness contains a great wealth of secrets, which are hidden within different dimensions or realms, or which can be traversed if you're willing to open your eyes and see. This is where things become rather complicated. Supernaturals may be familiar with the spiritual world, a wraith acquainted with the Shadowlands, or a werewolf familiar with the spirit wilds, yet mages have been known to explore far further, and I will endeavor to explain the other worlds to allow you to realize how vast this cosmos truly is. Traversing worlds requires a mage to do two important things: to cross the gauntlet, and to alter their physical being to a spiritual one. The gauntlet serves as a barrier between the mundane world and that of the spirit worlds, otherwise known as the Umbra. The technocracy would have you believe that the gauntlet is another one of their little safety mechanisms to prevent spirits from traversing into the physical realm, but this is a farce. This barrier is naturally created, generated by the Earth itself, and whilst the technocracy may have made it more difficult to journey across, mages can still locate weaker areas of the gauntlet, and through meditation or ritual can step sideways through it. Some mages prefer to generate an astral projection to move through the mists of the gauntlet, but others will simply make a doorway through a ritual, and once passing from the physical to a spiritual form, can make their way through to the penumbra. The penumbra, for the experienced mage, is a rather unexciting plane of spiritual existence. It is a reflection of mundane reality, however viewed through a spiritual lens. Depending on the traveler, the penumbra can be perceived in different ways. Videre is a term utilized by some mages to articulate these different views. The astral videre sees the place as a matrix, with each element of the mundane world sparkling with quintessence, revealing what their form represents to the traveler. For someone of faith, a temple may radiate great beams of golden light, and to an unbeliever, a crumbling and decaying ruin. Those mages that enter the penumbra through usage of spiritual magic perceive it through the videre spiritus, a view of this world which is far less subjective. Instead, this place is felt more than seen, and thus the way a mage may experience familiar places through this unique sight align more with what an object actually is, in contrast to what the user thinks it might be. A rather abstract concept, but here's a comparison. A mage will look up to a church within the penumbra, and rather than seeing it as a beacon or a trap, it will reflect its truer nature. Say it is a meeting place for malevolent beings, it may instead show deep rot and decay. The videre mortem is the last perception of the other world, which uniquely links the material plane with the perceived afterlife. Some of those who are dying, and of course the dead, are able to see behind this veil. Many have stated that through the penumbra they see the light at the end of the tunnel, whereas others just a hollow space of nothing. What happens after we die is a mystery to those who have not experienced the supernatural, but those aware may know of wraiths who occupy space within the near umbra. There are, in fact, a selection of other worlds within this space, which are frequented by some of the supernatural creatures which exist within the material world. The Shadowlands, the Astral Plane, the Dream Time, the Spirit Wilds, and even the Digital Web occupy space within the penumbra, and each is linked with a layer of the near umbra, the spiritual space closest to Earth. Now, as you might have gathered, crossing over to this spirit world is already a complex ordeal. In fact, the spirit world is so vast that the understanding those within the world of darkness have of it relates mostly to Earth. Hence why you will hear it more commonly referred to as the near umbra. The moon and all the planets in our solar system and far beyond have their own respective penumbra and celestine, i.e. spirits of authority just under Gaia. There are realms within this space which span from literal depictions of heaven to the unhallowed lands of Nod, and stretch even further into the alien realms of deep space, beyond the touch of Gaia herself. But let us not get too embroiled in these matters, and focus on the already complex realms closest to us. There are three main areas of the near umbra we must explore to fully understand its nature: the high, middle, and low umbra. Travel to these three parts of the near umbra is, theoretically, as simple as letting your own intent guide you wherever you wish to go. With enough knowledge of spirit magic, this ordeal is rather simple, such as following the quickest path to your desired destination. To those unaccustomed to the near umbra, it is best experienced first with a guide. To arrive in the high umbra, otherwise known as the astral reaches, one must utilize their own thought to traverse the spirit world to essentially go up. This is supposedly easier to do in the middle umbra, known as the spirit wilds, but such travels can also be started in the penumbra, even through the usage of doors, but traversing this way will often find you at the level of base thought, or the vulgate. The Vulgate itself, despite being part of the High Umbra which is closest to Earth, is a rather chaotic affair. Here you may see intersecting realms which portray such concepts as battle, love, and invention. These are all concepts which are, in relation to the magnitude of the Near Umbra, accessible to the human mind. Moving up from the Vulgate can be a hard task for those unaccustomed to its complexities. The High Umbra itself can lead to a mage's demise from mental exhaustion alone. But if you unravel the concepts of this place, you can reach a higher plane of understanding. From the Vulgate, great spires rise as the very essence of this plane becomes more abstract in nature. The great courts of the High Umbra, often experienced as heavens and hells, are occupied by spiritual beings known as umbrood spirits. Their presence benefits from the varied nature of human cognition. The courts in which they inhabit may take the appearance of Chinese conceptions of hell, or the medieval European depiction of paradise. The spires which lead up from the Vulgate are innumerable, perhaps as many as the human mind has ever dreamt of, since we graduated from instinctual thought and yearned for something greater. At the very top of these spires lay the Epiphanes, at which point everything becomes far more abstract. Whilst the High Umbra allows mages to indulge in the conceptual, the very top is both an enlightening and dangerous level of existence. The only spirits to exist indigenously in this layer are the Epiphlings, who wisp around, defending their territory lest a malignant force encroach upon it. A human mind cannot last long within these clouds above the spires. Everything is entirely subjective. No two awakened beings will experience the Epiphanes the same. Various realms construct and form here, from solid ideas such as language and law to the ever-sprawling concepts of logic. Music hums, touch intensifies, and energy surges. There is no stagnation here. Upon a cursory glance, you may feel you understand it, until the realms before you twist and form into a confusing mess of abstraction, molding your brain like putty before what you experience no longer resembles something your human mind can comprehend. It is easy to get lost in its magnitude, and far easier to become consumed by it. Moving along from the High Umbra, we descend toward the middle. Whereas the High Umbra is dependent on human cognition, this plane is not. The Middle Umbra is also referred to as the Spirit Wilds, and is commonly used by the Garu, otherwise known as werewolves, for their vision quests. It is a place where emotion and nature are heightened. As you enter the Middle Umbra, in the daylight hours, this place is very dark and foreboding. The light of Luna is utilized by most travelers here, hence why it is best to explore at night. Nature itself dominates the plane. The trees tower over those of earthly residents. The mountains are steep, scraping heights not yet imagined. And yet, you can hear the sounds of great beasts screeching and howling just out of sight. It is a place of enormous life, yet also reflects the devastating side of nature. Here, you are not the pinnacle of evolution. You are just as much prey as anything else. To navigate the Middle Umbra, it is best to use a path. Umbral trails may guide you to your destination. These are paths which may resemble something like a forest track or a stream to guide your way. They can often be helpful, but can be varied in nature. The mage Lachlan Thane described using one of these umbral trails, which appeared to him as a rotting leviathan, upon which he had to climb across its skeletal spine to reach the realm he wished to visit. As such, many mages prefer to use moon paths. Lit by the Celestine Luna, her children protect these paths. These spirits are named loons after her, but to take these paths, one must bargain with these spirits first. Some are easily bribed with moon blossoms or even whiskey, but others may wish for a game of riddles to enter their path. Moon paths are the most direct routes to realms within the Middle Umbra, and are often the safest. More dangerous spirits do not approach these paths, thus they are preferred among spiritual travelers. The Middle Umbra is just as vast as the High Umbra, yet its realms are often ones which have been touched by the greatest spiritual entities which control the world of darkness. That being the Triad. The Wild, the Weaver, and the Worm. As such, realms can take the form of great sprawling landscapes, or alternate realities. One of the first realms you may visit could be the ethereal reaches. This is the domain of the Thunderbird, the Sky Father, and as such, the spirits here are aerial ones. To cross into this space, you must fly to the highest clouds of the Middle Umbra, at which point you can stand upon them and look out towards what appears to be paradise. Here, dragons and griffins soar across the endless skies, illuminated by every color known to the universe. Atop numerous clouds lay umbrued castles, commanded by their spiritual lords and ladies. If you gaze far enough, you may even see the horizon, upon where the reaches of this realm split into three, guided by the Triad. Each correspond with their metaphysical elements, that of dynamism, stasis, and entropy. Whereas the ethereal realm may represent spiritual nature in its purest form, we must also visit the flip side of the coin. Within the Middle Umbra, there is also a realm known as the Chasm, a realm traversed by exploring the ruts and crevices within the umbral trails. As you close in on the abyss, these crags in the path grow larger. If you're having a hard time reaching the chasm, simply wander down paths you do not yet know. The chasm has a knack for swallowing up anything it can, even that of spiritual matter and the umbral mists themselves. The chasm is less a place you experience and more so a state of mind. Down there, nothingness prevails. Scent, sight, and touch are almost pacified, and the only sound is the minute whisper of the wind. There are 5 ways to the chasm. The ways of gold, silver, iron, steel, and soil. Whilst these would seem reasonable to pass through, each often leads to death or otherwise corruption. There is only one resident of this place, a beast known as the Nightmaster. Impervious to death, the creature skulks across the caverns of this haunted place, threatening death or subservience from any that enter its presence. There are various other realms which make up the Middle Umbra. Dystopia, also known as the Cyber Realm, is practically a cyberpunk perception of the world of darkness. A nightmarish place, rotted to the core by greed and the experimentations of the technocracy. Cyber clinics peddling their Borg enhancements litter the streets, and most spirits are simply reflections of their future victims of this perversion of science. Whilst many of these realms appear as universal, some are frequented by other supernatural creatures more than most. Hybrazel is the realm of fairy folk, otherwise known as changelings. One must understand these creatures first to enter this realm, by perhaps reciting their ancient tales or recalling a legend of the Fair Ones. When the umbral mists part to reveal this realm, this is a place of true fantasy. In the west, the sun never truly sets, the land locked in permanent twilight. The sky burns a bright rose gold, and across the pristine landscape, knights and great palaces stretch across the beautiful vista. Look east, and you are met with the oppositional, yet no less fantastic sights of pure malignance. Ogres and goat-headed men prowl the decaying roads, whilst bogs and decaying labyrinths of diseased woodland ensnare lesser souls. Other realms are often frequented by other supernatural breeds within the Middle Umbra. The Garou traverse 13 of these, some of which reside in this space. Pangea, Wolfholm, Erebus, and others make up these realms of which the Garou use for guidance and spiritual enlightenment. Realms like Pangea can represent a primeval Earth, with roaming dinosaurs and ancient beasts. Others, such as Erebus, are a place of cleansing from the ever-persisting taint of the worm. To mages, the Middle Umbra is an extremely diverse place. It is one where you can look for but a moment and see a unicorn racing across a hillside. It is bizarre, but also representative of the belief humanity used to hold. Many things which are now thought impossible exist now, but only in this space, having lost their physical form in reality. It is both wonderful, dreadfully somber, and equally dangerous to those who underestimate its nature. Now we come to the final destination of the 3 layers, the Low Umbra, or Underworld. It is said that those alive cannot truly explore this place, hence why it has so many connotations of being linked to wraiths. Some mages have been said to visit this place, especially those of the tradition of necromancers, the Euthanatos, but it is no less obscure. It is a place of oblivion, and of complete destruction. It stands as the least known layer of the near Umbra. It is a place created out of emotion and memory for things that have long since passed. Those that enter willingly are said to not come back, and it is a place that is best avoided if you wish to cling onto your mortal coil. These vast spaces of the spiritual world may seem simple on the surface, yet the Tellurian is more vast than any human, supernatural or otherwise, could ever imagine. Most mages experience the spiritual world within the confines of the First Horizon, which is a layer around Earth's atmosphere which acts much like the Gauntlet. Past that is an expanse of space to which most refer to as the outside. Everything beyond Gaia's touch lingers within a scarcely explored space known as the Deep Umbra. Essentially a void outside Earth's spiritual sphere, it is sometimes traversed by those of the Technocratic Union, utilizing void engineers to peer in. Some say it is a space occupied by aliens beyond our understanding. Yet there are planets which in the expanse of the Deep Umbra have their own realms. A few bases of the technocracy reside in the void, but otherwise it is the final frontier of spiritual travel. Now we have mapped the surface of the Umbra, we can take a look into how mages came to be in the world of darkness. Unlike the origins of vampires or even the Garu, the inception of mages appears to track with the evolution of humanity. The traditions, essentially groups of like-minded awakened mages, will each tell you a different founding story for humans possessing magic. Some claim to be descendants of Atlanteans, whilst others venerate magical lineages. However, there are two philosophies that share a larger overlapping consensus: that magic was awakened from the enlightened self, or that it was gifted by the forces from the spiritual world. Whilst these two theories underline how humans discovered the power to awaken their avatars, it does not clarify why mankind even has the potential to obtain magic in the first place. There is a founding theory that coincides with these concepts, one that hypothesizes over the existence of the Pure Ones. These were primordial beings of the Tellurian, existing in a state before the reality we experience today, known as Prime. Some say that these beings created everything in the physical realm, from plants to human life. Yet, unknown to history itself, these beings shattered. In doing so, they imparted part of their essence on humanity, forging their soul. Whilst it lays dormant in most people, those first mages were said to have awakened this essence of the Pure Ones, which was then dubbed their avatar. Prime is thus one of the 9 spheres of magic that make up the elements of reality, alongside correspondence, entropy, forces, life, matter, mind, spirit, and time. Some say there is a 10th sphere, yet there is much debate surrounding what this could possibly be, and is best left to the bickering of traditions. These theories all lend to the yearning of most mages to find a higher level of understanding, essentially leading to the pursuit to know reality to its fullest. This is what is meant by ascension. The history of mages throughout time, however, has not always followed a simple route. As they are people that endeavor to write upon the fabric of reality, there are often quarrels with how this should be done. Thus, there has always been a divide between those that believe in the mystic and those that pursue magic through rational science. Whilst in the present day, this can be seen through the scientifically minded Technocratic Union and the more mystical Council of 9 Mystic Traditions, these fractures have been deepening for millennia. That said, the existence of mages has always been a rare thing. In those ancient days, the divides were not as devastating as they are in the modern age. Most magi lived on the fringes of society, and sometimes cooperated in small fellowships, instead of the ranks of a formal tradition. Magic in these times was more pronounced, with some mages utilizing their ability to weave the tapestry to create displays of magical prowess which rivaled mythical tales. Others seemingly went mad with their power, leading to great dark acts, but nonetheless displayed what was capable with the fluidity of true magic. This period spanned from the prehistoric era to about 3,000 years ago, when the boundaries of reality were not as rigid as they are now. As the centuries passed by, humanity naturally evolved and grew. And with that, the boundaries and free flow of possibility splintered and sometimes stagnated, as wars were fought over religion and the essence of what was real. The confines of magic were set into two camps, that of free will and true fluid magic, and the newly termed static magic, which was confined to the boundaries of what humanity believed was possible. This era is known as the High Mythic Era, and was the first time in which mages understood that their powers could scarcely touch the limits of their full potential. Legendary powers such as the gift of immortality, apocalyptic storms, and even the ability to fly were now more difficult to harness. Some mages, who wished to battle against the restrictions of their abilities, sought to delve deeper into the extent of what was capable with their magic, fueling a dangerous path to alter the tapestry in more drastic ways, whereas other mages looked to what was possible with observable creation. Such was the dawn of high hermetic art, and the creation of tangible miracles, spirit communion, and alchemy. Was thought as legendary in present times, these restrictions forced most mages to adapt to these lesser methods of producing their magic, and those that adopted this new way often found success, perhaps too easily in most cases. These practitioners formed greater fellowships and covens, which often existed peacefully, yet war between mages in their practices of fluid and static magic became more commonplace. These devastating battles pulled upon the threads of the Tellurian, and it was the actions of a few who wished to tear at the very fabric of the tapestry which led to paradox. Backlash tarnished these mages, who dared to continue a legacy of utilizing the unbridled power of fluid magic, and mortal populations soon grew to distrust those who proclaimed to harness mystical abilities. These battles would culminate in an event known as the Ascension War. This war for reality itself began in 1325, when the Order of Reason, the predecessor of the Technocratic Union, proclaimed that a single unified truth was a lesser evil than endless possibilities. This order sought to carry this belief into a crusade against all those who harnessed mystical abilities. Not only mages, but all those of supernatural origin, such as changelings, werewolves, and vampires. In their pursuit for science over mysticism, the Order of Reason sought to take this mantra across the world. The cabal of pure thought raged across Europe, joining witch hunters and inquisitors across the continent, all the while aiding them with their god-given magic. In the East, the Order sought to infiltrate the ranks of the ruling class, such as the shogunate in Japan, sponsoring their philosophers and artificers to create instruments of power over their enemies. Whilst the Order set about converting the sleepers of humanity to their ideology, they also worked on strengthening the gauntlet, making it more difficult for mages to step sideways into the spirit world. Whilst initially the Order was set back by paradox after wishing to aid humanity with great inventions such as flying machines and mechanical soldiers far beyond their time, they vehemently endeavored to force their view across the world, eventually through a more detailed and subtle approach. The concepts of science were slow to adopt across cultures, yet their efforts led to a shrinking of possibility. Militants of the Order slew mystics across the globe, and the effects of this war still show across the world of darkness, even to the modern age. The mystic mages, divided by their fractured beliefs, sought to create a unified front against this ever-encroaching age of stagnation. The whirling storm of uniformity, spurred on by the Order of Reason, threatened to end their existence, and thus, three people, a Christian mage, a hermetic wizard, and a descendant of Wick, gathered like-minded sorcerers to an assembly, known as the Grand Convocation. It took 9 years to form, yet in the summer solstice of 1466, the Council of 9 Mystic Traditions was finally brought to fruition. This was not without its pitfalls. 2 traditions disbanded, and the others were still divided by their oppositional beliefs, with each tradition having their own views on how magic and ascension should be conducted. Internal conflict raged between the council, and only fueled the efforts of the Order of Reason to drive their final nail. The Mythic Ages would end in complete defeat of the Mystics. The Age of Reason had begun. As the centuries passed by, great works were heralded through the pursuit of ever-advancing science. The Industrial Revolution saw an explosion in technological progression, yet the presence of paradox was still growing, tightening around any mage that dared pull the tapestry any further. Dark mages of the Nefandi and the Marauders utilized this period to leech off of the ever-growing greed of the technomancers, emboldening them to create greater evils to set across the earth, destroying nature and spewing poison into the air and seas. Even mages across Africa and the Americas, who had only previously felt the erosion of possibility from afar, petitioned the council, yet their squabbling knew no end. Many mages returned to their homelands to defend what they could, yet the Order of Reason knew they could capitalize on their enemy's weakness. Reforming into the Technocratic Union, they sought to slowly shake away what remained of the faith of god worship. Supposedly working under Queen Victoria, they sought to bring about a new age of scientific dominance. With it, machine guns, flying machines, and tanks. Though there was pushback, not only from Paradox, but from mages across the world who fought against what was now the status quo. The growth of occultism, radical art, revivals in religion and culture all undermined the advancement of the technocracy. But it was a battle of survival, not a war for victory. In the modern era, these battles still wage on. Those of the Council seek ascension, the technocracy for so-called global security, the Marauders for unlimited change, and for the Nefandi, an end to it all. Like many factions within the world of darkness, objective good and bad groups do not exist. But while some conduct their business with a tighter fist, others are simply scrambling to maintain their way of life. The Council of 9 Mystic Traditions follows principles which honor true magic and the ideals of individual freedom. But due to the diverse collection of groups within the council, and each mage's individual interpretation of the Tellurian, it's safer to say they are more grey than anything else. One could point a finger at the technocracy and say they represent a more black and white rendition of evil, but one could highlight their core beliefs surrounding their willingness to steward humanity through the chaos magic brings, and find some noble intentions, however difficult that may be. In summary, the groups and factions within modern mage society are as follows, starting with the individual traditions that make up the Council of 9. The Akashic Brotherhood is a tradition built off of the understanding that mind, spirit, and body are paramount above treading the path of ascension. Keen practitioners of martial arts and understanding the self first, these mages do not seek to claw towards enlightenment, but more so follow the flow of its course. Through perfecting the self and honoring it as a temple by following martial and meditation principles known as Do, they've gained recognition for being introspective mages, as such occupying the seat of the mind within the council. The Celestial Chorus holds the seat of Prime within the council, and are renowned for their association with religion, especially ones of Abrahamic faith. They believe faithfully in the theory of the One, an interpretation of the Pure Ones, with their faith placed in the fact that humanity all has a spark of the divine within them. They devote themselves to spiritual guidance, often becoming religious leaders or Good Samaritan archetypes. The cult of ecstasy resides on the seat of time, and is a tradition in which their name is perhaps the most deceiving element of their group. Whilst on the surface they do pursue hedonistic pleasures, these are only a means to an end, in the hopes that they will catapult their souls to a heightened plane of understanding. They find deep meaning in many of life's pleasures, but rarely push their agenda on others. They are both the most free tradition and perhaps the most disciplined amongst the Council of 9. The Euthanatos are, as their name aptly alludes to, the tradition of death, and thus take the seat of entropy upon the council. They are often seen as necromancers, or harbingers of the ultimate end of life. Their true ideology stems from the fact that without death, the natural cycle cannot continue. Part of their methodology surrounding this, whilst controversial, reinforces their perception. They are often seen pushing this cycle forwards themselves through dealing a good death to those they deem ready. Whilst many within this tradition have taken lives, few enjoy the practice. Many mourn their victims' passings, and even say they have witnessed the other side as apprentices, to reinforce that the cycle is ever turning, and that death is not the end. The Order of Hermes is ranked as one of the most powerful traditions upon the council. Taking the seat of forces, their origins are rooted in ancient Egypt, and the East, having almost practically birthed the mythic age themselves. Once a collection of numerous houses, they are now one, channeling their divine arts against the technocracy, hiding them through tongues, rituals, and cryptic calculations. In the modern age, they continue to manipulate governments and financial institutions, but this appears to be only a temporary measure before they graduate to bigger and better things. The Sons of Ether originally belonged to the Order of Reason, being technomancers, but left after the luminiferous ether was removed from the consensus, i.e. the reality upon which all sleepers believe to be true. These mages occupy the seat of matter upon the council, and are often seen as strange, mad scientist types by many within the Nine. Their steampunk nature and idealistic inventions are cemented in their belief that true science is both art and the path of salvation for all humanity. They are the sorts that heralded Tesla over Edison, seeing invention as more than just a predictable entity. Upon the seat of life sits the Verbena. They're often thought of as being the typical depictions of Wiccans, mystics that typify what a witch should be, herbalists, fate weavers, bewitchers. They are both the symbolism of old magic and the tradition most affected by the engulfing tide of technology. Life for them is the most potent force that exists within the universe, the womb being the greatest cauldron of them all. They have taken a very holistic perspective, venerating old gods and ways, but each member of the Verbena must find some way to adapt their principles to the modern way of life, lest their craft die and be lost to time. The virtual adepts are a tradition also hailing from the technocracy, now having switched sides to the Council of Nine. They supposedly invented cyberpunk and how we communicate through the modern internet. As hackers, they utilize the zone within the Umbra known as the digital web, in which they believe will become the next home for humanity. They often hack the most sensitive information on the internet, and have had many run-ins with the FBI and similar organizations within their endeavors. Their core belief resides in the pursuit of an existence post-human, a metaphysical transcendence beyond flesh. They sit upon the seat of correspondence. Whilst we have touched upon the Technocratic Union, there are other entities within Mage Society which have more bleak and oftentimes destructive outlooks upon the world. The Nefandi and the Marauders are seen as dark mages, corrupted beings that have willingly or unwillingly set themselves on a path toward full corruption. The Nefandi themselves are often called the Fallen Ones, and in many cases can scarcely be called human at all. Led by the Nefandi lords, often trapped within the confines of the deep Umbra, they are consumed by the dark essences within the spirit world, and they rule over their faction of mages whom were either corrupted during their awakening, or those that fell from the path of their ascent. Known as the Barabi, the Nefandi are universally hated across Mage Society, even by the Marauders. To become part of their creed, one must have their avatar warped and inverted in a ritual known as Nefandic Rebirth. Once initiated, a Nefandus serves two purposes: to steal away the avatars of both mage and sleeper alike, and to return their dark lords to the physical realm, potentially earning them great rewards that are incomprehensible to any. Whereas most mages seek to ascend, the Nefandi descend, and thus their battle against the Tellurian wages with furious vigor. The Marauders, on the other hand, represent the maddening effects awakening one's avatar can bring. Those that underestimate the Marauders will call them simple bandits, but the secrecy of their origin is perhaps their greatest asset. None truly know how a Marauder comes to be. Some can hypothesize that it is a fluke within their awakening, or a pursuit to attempt drastic magic before they could truly understand their powers. The truth, however, resides deep within their subconscious, impervious to any healing or psychic abilities. Most Marauders can barely communicate above babbling gibberish, thus their motives are rarely understood. Whilst they are often seen as maniacal, sometimes even clown-like, their presence is one to be feared. They are beings which embody the random potential of the Tellurian. They are, for the most part, immune to paradox. Any backlash they could face from performing wildly dangerous magics is often reflected on innocent bystanders. Whilst they reside within the outside and the deep Umbra, it isn't uncommon for a Marauder to utilize their power to break through the barriers and to warp reality within the physical realm. These mages are extremely powerful and completely self-serving. Their machinations are known only to themselves and are wrought across those who have the misfortune of a chance encounter with one of their kind. Mage society is, to many outsiders, a complete enigma. These people who have awakened to this mystical power are a cut above most within the world of darkness. Their abilities stretch from the power to heal the wounded, to conjuring great firestorms that can engulf entire cities and beyond. There is much to be said of what a mage can do, but that question is one which is entirely superfluous. Reality, as we have discovered, can be altered as far as you wish to pull the threads. Pull too far, and catastrophe can occur, for yourself or anyone with the misfortune of keeping your company. The world of darkness may seem like a universe which lays in perpetual stagnation, of constant nightmare and suffering, but these individuals have the power to maintain the status quo, restore the world to a better state, or to destroy it entirely. With such powers a mage has, truly anything is possible. Thank you for watching. I feel I said this at the end of every video, but this one did take a very long time to make. But this wasn't due to the script or the editing per se, but more so life outside of YouTube. In the past half a year, I've had to switch jobs, move to the top of the country, and I've had to adapt to everything new going on right now. So huge apologies for the amount of time this has taken, but thank you so much for those who've stuck around and for all the supportive comments I've received. Please do let me know what you would like to see next on the channel, and always leaving a like, leaving a comment and subscribing definitely helps the channel. But remember, be safe and do not wander naively into the night.